Good afternoon, good evening to so many of you. Welcome to Zoom at 8. My name is Julianne Peterson, and I am a loan officer for Old Capital Lending. You know you have lots and lots of options on a Tuesday night, so I want to thank you for making Zoom at 8 a priority. We have already helped 6 people, 6 different groups take down a deal. So are you going to be number 7? I'm hoping so. Again, Old Capital, we are a premier provider of debt. So if you are looking for multifamily, or you have an opportunity with a mobile home park or retail, any of the commercial assets that you might be looking to take down, I would ask that you come to Old Capital, come to Julie at Old Capital, and I can see about sizing it for you. We close $1 billion in loans every year. So you're in good hands. And the way I run my business is a little bit different than the rest of the Old Capital folks, because I have been in your shoes before. Like many lenders out there, they got out of college, went into finance, and they find themselves as a mortgage broker or lender. But I've been in the trenches with you guys, started out in single family, went to multifamily, and now after 21 years, I am almost done with being a landlord. That's a long time. I've been in 3 different markets, and I know how to get it done. And what I said to myself is, I am not going to treat other people like the other mortgage lenders. Go away, come back when you know something. So I really am here to help you, help educate you, put people in front of you, especially on Zoom at 8, who can help your education and your journey. A lot of my partners that I work with, that I put, come to Zoom at 8. So this is a great place. If you're not familiar with, let's say, attorneys or management companies or insurance brokers, they're here. So I want to make sure that we're adding value to you and creating an environment that we can help close. So Buddy tonight, he is here to inspire us and to talk about mindset and being all of you that are active and a retired military. I want to certainly tell you, thank you for keeping my family safe. And Buddy's going to touch on his experiences and how his experiences in the military, what he's taken from those to apply them to real estate. So Buddy, as I mentioned, is a former Marine officer. I think it's always once a Marine, always a Marine, so not necessarily former, but he was stationed at Camp Pendleton, which is here in California. He is a 2004 graduate of the United States Naval Academy, earning a degree in aerospace engineering. That guy is pretty smart.
Which I never used. Not a single time did I ever use aerospace engineering in my career in the Marine Corps. So appreciate that, Naval Academy.
Yeah. Well, and so in 15 years since then, he has traveled around the world, leading Marine groups in training operations in Okinawa, Thailand, Philippines, South Korea, Guam, and Bridgeport, as well as 4 deployments to Southeast Asia and Afghanistan. You know, in early 2012, Buddy launched White Feather Investments, and you're up for a real treat to hear about Buddy and how he has really achieved so much wealth, whether it is wealth in his pocket or wealth in his relationships with other people, and mostly how he is helping active and retired service. So if you guys would be so kind, up in the right hand area of your screen, it says view. And if you would put it on speaker view, and now we see Edward Buddy Rushing. Thank you, Buddy. I'm just going to call you Buddy. I know Edward is your real name, but we're not going to go with that. But thank you so much for coming and joining me tonight, and our folks here. We are a great group of folks that are not only doing business, but also learning how to do the business. Your focus is a little different than what most of our multifamily people are. So I'm super excited for you to share, how did you get started in real estate? But really, most importantly, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I've never been to this group, and you can tell if you've been around real estate for a while about a group very, very quickly. You can tell if they're useful, you can tell if they're action takers, or you can tell if they're just rookies or tire kickers or newbies or, good-hearted losers or whatever, right? And this group is impressive to me. So I've been hearing what you're saying. I've been watching you and watching how you react and everything. And the fact that you showed up in general and the stuff you're putting, this is a very active chat box, and that's not normal. So I can tell already that there's a bunch of lions in this group, which fires me up because I didn't know what to expect. I just knew I love Julie to death, and I'm going to do anything for her, but I don't know. I don't have any clue what this Zoom at 8 is about. So great first impression right off the bat. What I will tell you is, I grew up, I'm going to try to make this really fast. You can type in Buddy Rushing Podcasts and hear the whole story at some point because there's several of them that are out there. But bottom line is I grew up, way below the poverty line, food stamps and such in the foothills of East Tennessee. And I'm the youngest of 5. And my mom and dad, did the best that they knew how. But ultimately that was, to grow up in a life of poverty and all of the all of the negative things that come along with poverty, all of the abuse, physical and substance abuse, and all of the things that happen. And more importantly than all of that, really the death of dreams. Like you're not even allowed. You've heard the analogy of crabs in a bucket, and one crab tries to crawl out and all the others pull them down, right? Well, that's very much what it feels like, what it felt like for me growing up in the area that I grew up in, because you weren't even allowed to talk about money because money was evil. And rich people only got that way by stealing it, and they weren't generous, and they were crooks. And, that's right. The only real acceptable way to get money was to win it either in the lottery or by suing someone. And I have examples of both of those that I won't go into tonight, of people in my neighborhood who were local heroes. One because he sued somebody after he got into a car wreck, and one because he won the lottery. So those were the only acceptable ways to make money. Everything else was, if you made lots of money, you were a crook. That's my background. I have no clue what everybody else's background is like, but you asked a little bit about me. And I will tell you that the Naval Academy ultimately saved my life without question, right? Because I squeaked in last minute, like Indiana Jones under the rolling ball, right? They denied me at first because there were much more qualified people that were going there. And I think a bunch of them decided that they wanted to go to Harvard or whatever, because they all, a lot of people that go to service academies, they get accepted to lots of schools. And so last minute, bunches of them always fall out. And then they issue the second round of invitations. And that one was what came to me. And I saw a level of individual there that I did not know existed. People that were good at everything and humble. And I was like, whoa, right? So I go through and get through the academy, and I learned that there's this big world out here. But what's crazy is that even though I graduated with a degree in aerospace engineering, and I later was commissioned as an officer in the Marine Corps, and I had the best education you could possibly get, I learned nothing about money. Nothing. At one of the premier institutions in America, I learned nothing about money. And so you get a career starter loan at the time. This was 2003, 2002. You get a career starter loan for like $25,000, 1.9% interest. You can do whatever you want to with it, right? It's crazy. It's got an extended payback period and everything. This is 2002. I could literally have bought any property anywhere and sold it 3 years later and made about a 40 to 200% return, depending on the market that you're in. I've done this analysis retroactively, right? Instead, I went down, I bought a timeshare in Florida. I bought a car that eventually got repossessed at a 17.9% interest rate from the West Street Toyota. I didn't buy it. I put $2,000 down and financed the rest at 18% interest. I bought a lot of booze, which is really the only smart thing that I did with it. Everything else was a waste of money. And it was gone, right? And that is a perfect example of the dichotomy that you see, that the a massive gaping hole in even the most premier of educational institutions. And so, you know how I learned about real estate was I was on my first pump to Afghanistan, and somebody had left an old copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in between the seats of the macked up Humvee that I was in, because I was in Southeast Afghanistan. Not a lot of new stuff there. Everybody was in Iraq at the time, and it was just a few Marines in Afghanistan. And I was embedded with the Afghans. And so I read it, and I was freaking hooked from the second I saw it. I read the entire thing, and I thought two things. Number one, this is a terribly written book. Two, it is absolute gold. Everything in here is absolute gold, and it applies to me. It applies to somebody who knew nothing about debt or money or anything, but could learn. And I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. I had no connections. I had no network. I had nothing. But it convinced me that I could do it and that I needed to do it. And that's what the start of it was. And so anyway, there was a lot of people look at the last 3 years and they say, wow, you've built this big thing and you know, made all this money and done all these deals, and, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 individual deals. And, you know, we just, oh goodness, you know, White Feather people now have took down a $3 million 7-plex in Coronado. They all run together. We did 4 single-family short-term rental $600,000 townhouses in Jacksonville Beach. Got another $1.5 million one that we're in escrow in right now, and then 11 duplexes we put an offer in on today, and blah blah blah, so forth and so on. Tons of stuff, right? Mostly single-family deals, like you mentioned, and small multifamilies. But we have done some larger multifamilies too. Mostly just raising capital and doing LP stuff. Right. There are some syndicators now. You'll appreciate this. There are official White Feather syndicators now. There are, I think, 3.
Yeah,
There's
Josie
not many
Heron.
of us. Josie is killing it. Greg Butcher is killing it. Yeah. So a couple of us, right? But nowhere near the experience of this group in multifamily. And so, you know, if you want to talk about that, I'm as much of a student as anybody else. But real estate's real estate. You guys know that, right? It's not rocket science. Some of the dumbest people I know are super rich. And they're nice people, but you don't have to be super smart to be successful in real estate. You do have to work hard, and you do have to be honorable, in my opinion. And you do have to have a great network, and you have to be bold and take action. But you don't have to be backed by, you know, tons of wealth or have all these degrees or anything. And that's what appealed to me, is because, you know, people looked at me when I was, you know, 9 years old, and they never saw anything. They never saw anything of substance, right? Except some teachers who maybe saw potential, but everybody else was just like, this is a poor kid who's got jeans that haven't been washed in 2 weeks. And he, you know, so anyway, that is ultimately like what people focus on when they look at the last 3 years. But what they don't see is 10, 11, 12 years before that of 8-hour days in the Marine Corps and 6-hour nights of working on the side hustle, right? And, you know, just sort of a relentless mindset toward breaking the cycle of poverty in my family.
So talk to us about, how do you start a company when you're in the Marine Corps and you're traveling to 4 different deployments? How do you do that? How do you get your wife to say, hey, I'll be back, you manage this? Tell me how that was, because she has to have some buy-in on your dreams. And obviously those dreams have to be in alignment. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I did get, well, I don't know how you coach this, but I did get lucky with a wife that was as passionate about building real estate as I was. And so, yeah, you're right. So there were absolutely times I'd be running the cash flow analysis from Camp Leatherneck at night, because it's the opposite time over there. And then I would send them back to her, and then she'd do negotiations on the deals during the day. And then we'd go back and forth. In fact, one of the early self-directed IRA investments we did on a 5-plex that ultimately made us 300% return over the course of 3.5 years, tax-free. That one was done while I was at Camp Leatherneck in Helmand province in Afghanistan, and she was there in 29 Palms. And so, yeah, having that buy-in is huge. But what I'll tell you is, not everybody's going to have that. Most people are not going to have a spouse that's involved with them. They may either be passively supportive or outright hostilely against. Those are the two that I see most often. Yes. And so a lot of times you have to do it by yourself, or maybe you don't have a spouse. And so what I will say is, you absolutely have to boil down your IPAs. Like, you have to make a list of the income producing activities that you do and ignore everything else. I can tell you this, unless you are in a marketing business, you don't need a logo at first. You don't need a website. You don't need business cards in 2021. You don't need to have a catchy catchphrase. You don't need all of this stuff. You don't even need an LLC. I'm going to say it, blasphemous. Ugh. You don't need an LLC before you start making money, right? This is counterproductive or counterintuitive to a lot of the things that you read. And, you know, what happens is a lot of people spend so much of their time doing those non-IPA like things because they feel good, they feel productive, and they feel like you're moving forward, but you're not actually building a business. So if you focus, and what's a blessing of not having any time, if you got a full-time job where you can't do business, like for me, you know, I was a company commander, I was a platoon commander, I was, you know, so like you can't just say, excuse me, guys, we're going to pause this patrol while I go run some number. Like you just have to complete it, right? So you have to squeeze massive productivity in the pockets of your time. So if you have a job, and I know I actually will want to link up with Jonathan New and Vadim. Both you guys are active duty, right? So at some point I want to hear what you got going on because it sounds really cool and you guys are both still active duty. So we'll definitely talk about that because there's no way they do what they're doing without adhering to these principles of being able to get hyper-focused and hyper-productive in the moments of their time, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to have a team, though. No matter what, it doesn't matter how productive you are. Elon Musk has a great team. In fact, one of the guys who went through the accelerator and is a white feather member was on Elon Musk's board at Tesla. And he'll tell you that, like, Elon's brilliant and he's amazing, and you can see all over my wall, I'm a huge fanboy, but he has an amazing team, and he'll tell you how you do great things is by finding the right people and setting them on a course, on a mission that they all vibe with, and then challenging them, right? And so I would say it's the same for Fairwinds Capital or you know, Glob Network or, you know, White Feather, is you have to have a great team that can do the work whenever you're otherwise engaged. There's lots more, but IPAs and team are huge. Yeah, that's amazing. So, you know, you're going through, you're, you know, doing your Marine thing. What comes to your mind as in, like, what are you learning on a daily basis in your Marine life that you could apply to real estate? Like, where are the strengths that you learned in your daily job that you're carrying forward now, being retired? Some of those items. Yeah, we'd love to hear that. Yeah, discipline is a huge thing. Discipline is a massive thing. And I'm talking about emotional discipline, right? Mm-hmm. So anybody can say, you know, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or whatever, if someone outranks you and you're in that rigid structure. But now take yourself out, and this is for you guys that are going to get out. Take yourself out of that structure and ask yourself if you can be self-disciplined enough to put the structure in place. And when you don't have to, when nobody, like, I don't have to work in the morning. I don't have to be on this call right now. I don't have to do anything. But if I want to live a life of purpose, if I want to create the greatest impact that I can in what I believe is my mission in life now, I have to have discipline. And so taking that, and this is not unique to military, right? I mean, everybody is disciplined at something in their life. You just have to take that and apply it. So discipline is a huge thing. Organization is clutch. If you don't know where the money bloodlines of your business are, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you don't understand the accounting in your business, if you don't understand how to allocate time to your IPAs using, you know, Google Calendar, which is a fantastic thing. If I need to remember, I was talking about this today. If I need to remember something 11 months and 12 days from now at 8 a.m. in the morning, and it's critical that I remember that thing at that time, I put it into the Google Calendar and I forget about it for 11 months. And then boom, it pops up and people are like, how in the world did you possibly remember all these things? And I'm like, I don't. I outsource my memory to a database and to, you know, virtually free technology that's out there that is meant to keep you organized. But use the Occam's razor type approach. Like, don't overdo things. Don't needlessly complicate things. Like, use the simplest stuff. I mean, I use Google Drive, I use Google Calendar, I use Zoom, and Slack and email. And, you know, and I've built, you know, I've got 5 businesses that run. We have 419 active white feather members investing around the United States and around the world. 15 to 20 deals of various types in escrow at any given time, not including the solar company that we built out here. So there's solar projects as well that we're running, and an RV rental business, as well as my own portfolio, and then the white feather education course. So there's 5 separate entities, and I run them all. This is, by the way, this is a tough shed. This is in my backyard. This is a tough shed from Home Depot that we finished, and we put not very good AC in because I'm sweating, but it's a little, it's a probably 150 square foot tough shed. You don't need all that other stuff to run multiple businesses and to be successful. You need to focus on the things that matter, and then use organizational and time-saving technologies to help leverage your abilities.
Oh, that is so much information. So of those, what is your top one that you can't live without? It sounds like the Google Calendar. How about VAs, by the way? Do you use any VAs?
Yeah, we use 3 VAs. And I love VAs because oftentimes, well, for the obvious reason that they're really inexpensive, oftentimes they don't live here. They live in the Philippines. There's tons of VAs in the Philippines, which is opposite our time zone, which means you can give them a bunch of tasks at 6 o'clock at night, and they'll be done by the time you wake up in the morning. Right? That's huge. And then they're rocking all of this at like $4 an hour. So, and that's, it's an asymmetrical impact, because to them, $4 an hour, if they live outside of Manila or something like that, I mean, they're able to, you know, to have a house that they're renting for, you know, $400 a month or something. So anyway, VAs, yeah, we do use VAs. We don't use an army of them. I prefer to leverage technology to asymmetrically impact whatever task I'm doing. Okay, so like automated email type stuff, automated reminders, you know, organizational techniques that help me focus on IPAs.
Nice. You know, I love the way that you look at that, because when I do VAs, I'm like so frustrated because I want to talk to them and they're sleeping, and I'm sleeping when they're working. So it's interesting how you look at it in the positive. I get frustrated because I'm like, I got to talk to somebody. So I really like the way that you think about that.
It depends on the task that you assign them. So that Derek had a question, what specific tasks do you? So everybody's different, right? I personally think that, so I don't have an ability really to vet most VAs like I would like. And so I don't want to trust them with super sensitive information that can be damaging. What I want to trust them with are project type information. So for instance, we do something called a deal profile. And a deal profile is where, so with White Feather Investments, we have turnkey operations in 6 different markets around the United States. So Memphis is our flagship. So we've got a team on the ground in Memphis, and they basically will find deals, they'll take them down, renovate them, place a tenant, put it under management, and then a White Feather investor will buy it. Well, I oversee that operation, but also I focus more on educating and empowering White Feather members. So one of the things we do is we create a deal profile that essentially is, you can go on our website and look at examples of them. Just go to whitefeatherinvestments.com and look in markets, and you'll see examples of deal profiles. Basically though, it's a picture of it, and then all the information about the property, the square footage, the bedroom, bathroom, and so on, but then the acquisition price and financing, recommended financing terms, ROI numbers, principal, amortization numbers, and so on. And then there's links where you can go into the cash flow analysis that breaks down the 15-year time horizon, and then due diligence documents. So we pull all those together for White Feather investors, because remember, my main focus is helping that person who would not otherwise be able to build financial freedom, shift their mindset, do a few deals, whet their appetite, and then, I thought I saw Marcellus on here.
He is here, and he says, good to see you.
Yeah, so Marcellus went through the accelerator. He knew nothing about real estate, not a thing. I remember our financial freedom call. He knew nothing about real estate. And afterwards, after the course, he was like, hey, by the way, I want to get into big syndications, right? And then we linked him up with you guys, and now he's off and running on that.
Yeah.
He did not have the mindset before we spoke. He knew he wanted to do something, but he wasn't equipped with the tools or the mindset or anything like that. So my purpose in White Feather is to help shift people's mindset and then get them off of the starting blocks, right? So that's what a deal profile helps us do, is take somebody who's not an investor, show them how to analyze a property as an investor, and then actually put them in the driver's seat to buy it themselves with bank financing or private money or whatever. Well, that deal profile, it's just numbers. It's putting numbers together. We already have all the numbers. We just need them to be in that nice, neat little package. It takes like 45 minutes or 45 minutes to do one because of all the information that's in it. And that is not income producing activity. It's removed from that. So we have a VA do those. And it's a huge time saver because I used to put those together myself. So that's one example.
So that was a real learning experience that you had to teach them, your VAs. So that was a time consuming, but you have to do that.
It is.
Yeah. The IPAs, Andy wants to know, what do you focus on? What are the IPAs you focus on?
Yeah, it depends on the business. So I will say, so if it's a strict sales business, obviously, your IPA should be primarily finding new customers and converting those customers to deals or to projects, right? That sounds super simple, but ask yourself how many entrepreneurs, when they start off as, building any kind of sales business, an Amazon delivery service or they start an Amazon sales service online or any kind of like selling Etsy, right? Whatever. There are millions of entrepreneurs, right? And I've seen this because my wife and I built a network marketing business too. And you want to see, network marketing is an amazing industry filled with amateurs, right? Yeah. And so you get to see all of these different people that are just doing all the wrong things. But then you see a couple of people in every industry of network marketing who are crushing it, who are making $200,000 a month residual because they knew what to focus on. And I don't care who you are, like that's impressive money, regardless of what you think about the industry itself. Mm-hmm. So I was like, what in the world are they doing that 99.9% of everyone else is not doing in this industry? And so IPAs are not building a website. They're not organizing your office. They're not sending emails unless it's emails to people that are directly going to create income. They're not awesome. This is going to sound crazy. It's not even putting out fires a lot of times. Sometimes analyze the fire and realize that it'll go away on its own, right? And that's a dramatic, like there's a weird thing because normally we as humans, like when we see something that is dangerous, the front part of our brain kicks in and it says there's danger there. That is the most important thing that happens. And so when you get 5 emails that are all good and 1 email that's bad, you focus on the one that's bad. That's why news organizations lead with blood. That's why, it's the amygdala in our brain that triggers that fight or flight response. And you need to understand that it can apply to text messages. It can apply to Facebook messages. It can apply to phone calls, to opening your mailbox. If you open your mailbox, if you primarily get bad things in the mail, like, I don't know, unexpected bills or tax, forms or whatever, then you will drive into a negative energy state if you check the mail first thing in the morning, right? If instead you happen to get checks in the mail, then you're going to be in a positive state. So you want to focus, like, let's just say, and cut out blocks of productivity. So I have on my wall 4 hours of productivity every day. So even if I only get 4 hours that day, it's 4 hours focused on IPAs. And it allows you to create asymmetrical impact in the time that you have. Everybody, their number one question was, how did you build this 7-figure business while in the military? How did you do it? And the answer is not, I got lucky or I'm somehow gifted or whatever. It's not. It's hyper focus on IPAs and building the team. So what are IPAs? It sounds oversimplistic to say it this way, but it's the 1 or 2 things that you can do that have the highest return for that time in the form of money. And the reason I'm focused so much on money at the very, very beginning is that once you have it, you can then pursue the real mission of your business. The real mission of White Feather is not to make money. It's in the top 3, but it's not 1 and it's not 2. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say that, or they're like, oh, that sounds noble, and then they move on. But it drives every decision that I make. But the only way that I can make the ultimate goal of White Feather is to help military people create financial freedom. And we track it. We track their progress, all 419 of them. We track their progress toward financial freedom. And we do whatever we can to help them get there. And we create new business ideas and business models to help them get there. A lot of those things don't actually create income for me, right? But the only way I'm able to do things that don't create income is if I've hyper-focused on income-producing activities at first, to the point where I'm making enough money to be able to then pivot to the real purpose of my business, right? So that's hard for a lot of people to grasp, because the normal sort of understanding of business is that it's meant to make money, and most businesses are. That's their purpose, is to make money. But then I always ask myself, what is the purpose of money ultimately? And how much is enough, right? I used to dream. I remember vividly when I was 8 years old, my uncle, who was in the Marine Corps, came to see us one time, and we went out to eat, and he took us out to eat. And before we went out to eat, there was a little grocery store. And I asked him, I said, hey, can you give me some money so I can go buy some snacks? And he gave me a $5 bill. And I felt so empowered by that $5 bill. I still feel it. I can still feel the feeling that I felt. And there was a month fairly recently where we made about $130,000 in a single month. I did not get the same return emotionally from that $130,000 in 1 month as I did from the $5. Why? Because it doesn't mean as much now. It doesn't mean as much because a lot of people here know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Your first $1,000 means a lot to you, but $1,000 really doesn't mean much to anybody on this call. Yeah, it's nice and it'd be great to have it and blah, blah, but it really, let's be honest, it doesn't really. How can that be? It's the same money. It's the same money it was then. How can it mean less now? Why? Because the money doesn't have inherent value. It only matters what you do with that money. Okay? And the real greats know this. The real greats understand it. And I'm not saying that I'm great. I'm not. But I follow great people. And that's what they have taught me. And so if you build your business with that in mind, then you're going to create multiple streams of income, hyper-focus on your IPAs, and get the streams coming in so that then you can turn and do what the real purpose of it is. And then you get the real return, right? Then you get, you're walking on clouds when you get to do that kind of stuff.
Mm. So I hear Robert Kiyosaki really inspired you. Mm-hmm. How you've really walked, several years past the understanding of that book. Who inspires you now?
Yeah, well, that's easy. The number one guy is this guy up here. Yeah. Well, actually, I wouldn't say he's number one. He's one of two. The other guy is Peter Diamandis. Peter Diamandis wrote The Future is Brighter Than You Think. Gotta read that book. He wrote The Future is Faster Than You Think. Gotta read that book. He created all the Ansari X prizes and the things like that, that are changing the world. He's responsible for that. He essentially is someone who he keeps in contact with and keeps up to date on all of the exponential technologies that are tackling life's grand challenges, from mortality itself. I'm not kidding, right? The Human Health Longevity Institute down here in La Jolla is doing crazy things with the human genome and with Wnt pathways and things like that, to mapping out and exploring the moon, and obviously the trip to Mars that's so highly publicized, but also rebuilding the Great Barrier Reef and creating vertical farming to, thousands, right? The tagline or the sentence line on the bottom of my email says, if you want to become a billionaire, learn to help a billion people. That's what Peter Diamandis says. So I would say he's the number one, because with that kind of mindset, what are you afraid of? Like, what can you be afraid of? If you look at what Elon Musk did, right? He made $120 million with the sale of PayPal, and he sunk every single bit of it into SpaceX, which had a less than 10% chance of success. It was an absurd mission to create a private space like organization when he wasn't even, I'm more of a rocket scientist than Elon Musk by degree, right? But he showed what you can do if you have a childlike sense of wonder and an insatiable work ethic. And he has discipline. He has a sense of discipline like you wouldn't believe, right? So if you have those three things combined, what difference does it make what industry you do? He's built a solar company. He's built a rocket company. He's built an electric car company that's not really an electric car company. You know that, right? The mission of Tesla is not to create electric cars. It's to move the human race toward an energy sustainable future. That's why he open patented and gave away the patent that nonetheless he was able to use to become more wealthy and to create greater market cap than all other major car makers combined. And here's another example. I got a Tesla about 4 years ago. I used Robert Kiyosaki's model, right? He said, I wanted this Porsche and this is what it cost. And I didn't want to just go out and buy it because that was irresponsible. So instead I bought 4 investments and used the cash flow from those to pay for the Porsche. I did that exactly for the first Tesla I got, only it was 5. I needed 5 investments to do it. So it was, I'll just tell you, 3-4 years ago, it was about $125,000 for this brand new Model S, right? 3 years later, so I got it on a lease because there's no way I'm buying a piece of technology outright, right? So I got it on a lease. 3 years later, I traded it in and I got a brand new, but a performance version, which at the time, 3 years prior, was a $40,000 more expensive. So the ludicrous mode, a brand new Tesla with the performance mode was cheaper per month than the one I had leased 3 years earlier. How is that possible? And at the same time, Tesla became an 800 billion, whatever they were at, something along those lines, 600 billion. It was basically, they had just hit the greatest market cap of any car company in history, while simultaneously making their product a lot cheaper. Right?
Yeah.
You tell me that doesn't inspire you and make you turn and look at this financing challenge that you have, or this deal that just fell through, and really get down on yourself for it. Has anybody in the past 6 months had a significant struggle in any of their deals or their life? Raise your hands. Okay, it's like half the people. I have as well, right? It gets you down. Yeah. Imagine this. I left the military and my W-2 job. I was firmly committed to it when the global pandemic hit. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't back out of it. So I leave the only job that I've ever known as an adult in the middle of a pandemic in the real estate industry, right? Where there is so much uncertainty. And then a lot of BRRRR deals that we were doing started taking twice as long for the renovations. The lumber price went through the roof. Contractors started getting so busy. Then it got into the winter time, and then shutdowns because of COVID. We had several short-term rentals we had bought that, I mean, they were set to kill. And then COVID, boom, you're not allowed to rent out short-term rentals in Jacksonville Beach or in Indio and Palm Springs for 3 months. Right? All of these things hit all at once as soon as I lost my job, right? And I'm not going to lie, like there were times then I sat in here and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I mean, this is tough, and it sucks, and it feels like you're just like the world is conspiring against you. And then you remember, if you're lucky or if you're disciplined, you remember who you are, and that you've got the same 86,400 seconds that Elon does, and look at what he's doing, right? He's faced so much more stress than I ever did. When his 3rd rocket exploded, and he had flushed all of his money down. He was looking at bankruptcy, and he had one more shot with the 4th rocket to try to secure the NASA contract. He had a nervous breakdown, right? He had a nervous breakdown in December on the floor of his office. And if that had failed, SpaceX would have failed, and the human race, in my opinion, would have been set back 10, 20 years in space exploration. the whole human race, right? Because he's then spawned Blue Origin and, you know, the Virgin Galactic and all of the different stuff that is mapping our known universe and will put us on Mars. He's doing that, but he almost lost his own sanity, his own life in the process. That's way bigger than any challenge I've faced in the last 6 months, right? So when you remember that, you're like, this is, I mean, it's not that bad. And ultimately, you have to remember who you are and ultimately what you want and what your mission is, and be grateful for the fact that your heart is still beating, right? Imagine, let me ask you this, of all of the problems that anybody has faced in the last 6 months, if you got into a car accident and you lost your sight, right? Glass came in from this, you know, windshield and stabbed you in the eyes and you lost your sight, irreparable. You were blind for the rest of your life. How many of those problems would not matter at all to you anymore? Probably most of them, if not all. And so before I get too down on myself, I always remember to thank God for my eyes. And I'm not kidding. Like, that helps reorient me. And, you know, ultimately, you know, things are doing great now and so on, but they could go bad again, right? It's the resilience that you get from that bulletproof mindset that can create lasting generational wealth and freedom in your family. And it's that mindset that I want to spread, and we are spreading completely throughout the white feather community. Because imagine there's only 419 of us and we're doing crazy stuff. Imagine when there's 4,000, right? And they all have that mindset, and they all have a proven track record of service to their nation and to their community. That's the vision for White Feather.
Can you say the vision again, or the mission on that? Because I think it's just so brilliant.
So I will say the actual sort of mission statement is to educate and empower military members to help them achieve financial freedom through real estate. However, that doesn't really encapsulate, it's the best I could come up with, but it doesn't encapsulate the purpose. The real purpose is you have this, every generation, you have millions of people who raise their hand and they decide to put their life in between war and their home, if that is to happen, right? And even if they don't go to war, they're still serving and sacrificing for people they don't know, right? And they're doing it because at some fundamental core, they believe in the American dream. And that American dream is that little half Mexican, grow up on food stamps, Buddy Rushing, who was dirty and, you know, kind of kicked around whenever he was a kid, who dealt with abuse of all types, has the ability to live whatever life he wants in America. That is the dream that fundamentally we believe in the military. And then those people come back and they take off the uniform and they lose that sense of structure. They lose the pay. They lose the sense of accountability. They weren't taught anything about, you know, finances. And they lose the sense of purpose that they had. And then they go do a job that ultimately is less satisfying than the job that they just left, right? So what happens? You get a massive whiplash effect, and then you get veteran homelessness at a rate of 4 times of civilians. You get veteran suicides at 22 a day. You get all of the, you know, and the real problem in the veteran community that people are struggling with is not even the suicides and the homelessness. Those are byproducts. It's trying to escape that feeling of listlessness and lostness through substances or destructive behavior. That's really what it is. Popping pills from the VA, drinking tons, because it's a heavy drinking culture in the military. When you get out, that desire doesn't go away. I have a desire to drink right now. And oftentimes I have a desire to drink to excess right now, right? Which is fine if you're in a structure, but if you're not in structure and you're not disciplined, then obviously we know what that can do. So there is a lot of pain inside the military and veteran community that you can switch if you give them a sense of community and a sense of purpose. Instead, now I'm a real estate investor. I've got example after example of people who have transitioned out and now they're killing it and they're on fire for life because they have a new identity that complements their old identity and they have a network of people. And so the purpose really of White Feather is to help the people who have defended the American dream actually live the American dream itself, or take a shot at it.
Oh my God, that is so amazing. I mean, just so overwhelming. I just want to thank you, buddy, for, you know, that last statement is just so, as James said, well said. I mean, just so amazing. And you're doing some great stuff for American people, for military families. I just want to really thank you for your commitment. You're making a difference.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I am just as thankful to be a part of this, because I'm just a part of it. And I'm inspired. People like Dave Ortiz, I always go back to him. If you guys don't know or haven't heard of Dave, oh God, he's so awesome, right? And he, you know, is somebody who it's just a pleasure to work with. And there's there's hundreds of examples of that in my. So for me, I get to play a lot, really. It's work, but like I don't know. Remember that return I talked about that's not just financial? There are so many things I do that I don't make money on. And I could charge for it. I could easily charge for a lot of stuff that I do, but I don't, because there are other parts of White Feather where I make a huge return for the amount of time I spend. I have to, in order to be able to do things without charging for it. And I could go into specifics. We don't have time for it, but it is a pleasure for me too. I feel like I've been blessed with this opportunity post military service to still be in the Marine Corps in some ways.
Yeah. Well, you are inspiring so many civilians as well as military. So I do want to thank you for, again, your service, and thank you for joining us and making life much better for so many military families. It's a great honor to know you and to do business with you. You guys are doing some cool stuff.
I know we didn't talk about business hardly at all. Part of it was because you guys know more about multifamily real estate than I do, and I wouldn't know that you'd be interested really in a lot of the different deals that we're doing, because you're primarily focused on multifamily. But the thing that sort of transcends all of that is building a business and building wealth, right? And just like some of you guys have done single families, a lot of us have done multifamilies, and we all have our kind of areas we focus on. But ultimately, the one thing that the really greats do is they lock in all of the things that kind of we've covered tonight. So more than happy to help. Somebody mentioned, do we work with civilians too? Think about it like USAA, right? So if your dad was in the Army, or if your sister's in the Army, or if, family members, so on, or if you served way back when, that's kind of how we do it. The reason is not to exclude anybody. It's just that I don't have an infinite amount of time, right? And so I have to focus on something, right? And I always feel really bad about excluding anybody. But yeah, again, our mission is not complete until everybody's financially free. And that's a lifetime engagement, right? It's not going to happen in a year or two or whatever. So, okay. So I know we have to, I think we're done here.
Yep, we're going on to networking. So
okay.
Listen, how does somebody get a hold of you? If they are interested in White Feather, or they've got a question on, could I get involved? How do they reach out to you? Yeah.
So I think probably the best way is just to send me an email. And if you send me an email and maybe tell me a little bit about you in the email, what I can do is ultimately I tend to have people speak with Greg about, Greg's my ops manager, about, how they could potentially fit in the community and what they could bring to it, as well as what they'd get from it and that kind of thing. And he vets everybody. And then, but you can feel free to send, he won't know who you all are if you just send him a bunch of emails. So, so you can feel free to send me an email and just tell me a little bit about who you are and what you're looking to accomplish. And,
so that's Buddy Rushing at whitefeatherinvestments.com.
Yeah, I didn't think too hard about how long it would be whenever I created this.
Yeah, no problem.
Investments.com. Buddy Rushing at whitefeatherinvestments. Yeah. So yeah, feel free. And then, as you can imagine, I'll probably get a few. So if you could just be patient, give me a few days to to get back to.
Surely. And just make sure when you reach out to Buddy, just say, you know, that you were on here, you met Buddy, you heard him speak, and you were very inspired by him. And
or if you weren't, you don't have to say that.
No, you are very inspiring. And we look to help your folks continue to grow their business in multifamily, and certainly make connections for them within this community as well. So they're always welcome.
We're doing, like, if you look at the amount of multifamily, the amount of units from multifamily that we've done in the last year versus the last 10 years, it has skyrocketed. Because, I mean, let's be honest, at least for me, it's because of you, a huge bit, and Lane. But also, I'm finding it easier to find multifamily deals than single families right now.